just before our very eyes, the cross is deteriorating. Natural weathering, of course, is occurring, and then there's a tremendous amount of traffic going past there, creating vibration. Fuel fumes are having an effect, and the whole thing requires urgent preservation.
We found there was a need for a new cross because the original cross was a detailed scripture cross, and all of the scripture pictures on it had been obliterated. So we found that there was a need to try and recreate what existed there originally.
Well, we felt that the old cross had deteriorated to such an extent that people looked at it, but they didn't really know what they were looking at because they couldn't interpret the panels. For instance, the baptism of Christ or whatever. I mean, the figures were there, but they weren't clearly defined. We supposed that was what it was, and then when we researched the whole matter, we were able to come up with definite panels for the new cross.
When we were children, we left Donaghmore knowing nothing about the old cross. We were almost like blind people. The different scriptural scenes on it meant nothing to us. So we had hoped that the new cross will interpret these scenes for the young children of today and tomorrow. I've been a member for the last 2 years of a small subcommittee set up by the Historical Society to look into the production of a cross. The cross was made in Robinson's in Annalone. They are an old family, 3rd, 4th generation stone carvers. It was made there because we wanted people who had a great tradition in carving and people who would take a real pride in their job and who were able to get a stone carver who was able to take a real pride in his job. And this was quite a difficult job, finding someone like that.
Well, we were asked by Pat O'Neill about this, and we eventually went up to Donaghmore and had a look at the cross, and we decided we would do the contract. Well, when the stone arrived here in our yard, we measured them up to see how they would make the sizes, and put them on the saws and cut them into shape. We cut the cross head, and the mason put the bull nose right round it and put the lights in the face of the cross. The stone we are using is a sandstone from the northeast of England. It's quite a similar stone to the one that's used in the original cross in Donaghmore.
This stone looks so different from the original cross at the moment, but once it gets wet, it gets weathered, after a few winters it'll develop its own crust, fumes from the exhaust of the motors and things like that there. A few years it'll turn into a darker stone. Like I say, in 100 years' time, it'll look like this stone is a Dunhouse stone, and it's a beautiful piece of stone. There's no grain in it, and it's not too hard, and it's not too soft. You know, it's a perfect piece of stone. If you couldn't carve a stone like this, you couldn't carve any stone. When I first seen the Donaghmore Cross, I was amazed at the size of it, on the individual paneling, exactly the beading and all. I said to myself, rather taken on, but once I started like that and you got more involved in it, it was so rewarding it was. You really wanted to hurry to get it, to see what it looked like yourself. Well, really, the cross, it's all in panels, and it represents a Bible story, because in them days people couldn't read. So, pictures pictures in stone. The first panel was, I started with Adam and Eve. Then there was Cain and Abel, sacrifice of Isaac. And then there was the panel missing, which we decided on Daniel and the Lion's Den. So people would have looked at that. And it was just like reading a book, really. This here's the blueprint. This is the original drawing of March Feast of Cain, and then I get photocopies done. Because the panel's too big, I have to get the photocopy too. It's done on that side. So what I do is sure it's level. Chip garnets, nice kind of start painting it. Hopefully it'll off and see how it looks. Have a brush. Now start around the whole thing again. But I've got the blueprint to copy off on any the detail I've missed with the chisel. Fill it with a pencil now. The next stage now I have to take all that waste away to leave the figures. So I'm going to do it with an angle grinder, so I'm going to mark my depth. Make sure I don't go too deep. Mark my depth with the grinder. And then it's a matter of running the grinder through all this here. Just creates an awful lot of dust. This is a short way. The boy that done the original wouldn't have had any grinders. Jesus, I got a copy of one of the booklets here. What's that?
I try and get down to Robinson's as often as I can. Davey would give me a call if there's anything in particular that he needs to discuss. When I go down, we would talk about the panels that he's done and the panels that he's about to do, try and help him out on any questions that he might have. And if there are any problems, then I would go back to the committee and ask them, for their opinion on it. We generally always refer back to the written text. Just before he would start a panel, we would kind of go through it and work out exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, and then
Davy then produces a drawing, and he would then go ahead and sculpt based on that.
That's it there, isn't it? Yeah, crucifixion scene.
Sometimes I would do a rough sketch for him. Some of the panels we have to interpret ourselves, and in that case I might do a sketch for him which he would then base his drawing on. We try to keep that to as minimal as possible. The majority of the panels are based on what was written down.
Finish that off.
by the end of the week, I'm so.
Going to see the arts, it's a great experience. Seeing something that started off as a drawing, seeing it coming into reality it's very exciting. It's kind of nice to see the stone and see how Davy works, and to kind of see it coming together.
Dove on it.
That's my pride and joy.
And then the two discs, the Jor and the Dan, the two sources of the river. That one looks fine.
That's the two knots. So
Well, each time I go down to see the cross, I'm always excited to see how much more Davy has done. He works quite quickly, so he usually has done quite a bit by the time I get to see him again.
Whenever I started the New Testament side, the Annunciation of the Shepherds, the birth of Christ, and then the three wise men coming in to visit Jesus as a wee baby, and so I carved him, and it was very, 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 very difficult, a wee small baby. But then he was baptized, and then he did the miracles, and then he got crucified. And I sort of formed an attachment to him. He was my wee Jesus, if you know what I mean, because I had him from a child, But doing the crucifixion scene, I was that nervous because I just put it on as an 8 to half 4 job, and you get away at the end of the week. As it went on, and I seen the interest developing, and then, when the crucifixion scene itself, I looked at it, and it was one of the more plainer things you could see in the old cross, believe it, and I got quite nervous. The angels on either side of Christ's head, I put them turning away from him so that they wouldn't see him suffer, which was a wee part of me. I don't know whether the original sculptor did it. I'm sure he did, but I did. My hopes for the future of my cross would be to really put more emphasis on the old cross.
Well, the committee are ultimately hoping to achieve the preservation of the old cross, and we feel that with the recarved cross being in position, it will encourage people to think what the old cross looked like originally, and the necessity of preserving it for future generations because it is in a state of decline. This is the old communal burial ground which has served the village and the community for hundreds of years. When Donaghmore Historical Society were endeavouring to choose a site for the recarved cross, we thought that the best position we could get would be similar to where the original cross had stood. The old cross had stood near to the ancient church, which stood originally in the middle of the current graveyard. So after a good deal of discussion, we decided to settle on this position where we now are.
We decided to take advantage of the position of the large yew trees. Basically, with viewing the cross from the bottom of Donaghmore Street, we don't want to overshadow its older brother. So we can have a great view of this from the Pomeroy Road area.
The recarved cross will be in three main sections, which will comprise the base, the central shaft and the top cross section. And the contractor will be responsible for putting these in position. As far as I understand, the newly carved cross will arrive by mode of transport. It will be in the village tomorrow, and erection will take a couple of days.
Today is the 16th of October. The cross is leaving for Donaghmore via Newry, Armagh, Dungannon. When the cross arrives there, there'll be lifting equipment there to put it in place.
The erecting of the cross was a very intimidating prospect. We had to close the road at a very busy time, but we found that the reaction of the people, and many of them came in and watched the thing, was very, very rewarding. The biggest risk we were afraid of was that some of the parts would either fall when the crane was lifting it, or they would smash each other as the pieces were fitted together. My first thoughts when I saw the cross going up was to that time in a similar location 1100 years ago when a number of monks must have tried to do the job we were attempting without any cranes. Then, as the pieces fitted together like a jigsaw, I was just astounded, and I felt so good that our work had come together so very quickly. We decided to keep the cross covered until the opening because we wanted the people to get the same impact from seeing the cross that we saw as it was assembled. And we thought the best way to do this to keep the cross dry, to keep it clean, was to put a cover over it.
It was hanging about all day, good enough.
Well, this is the evening of our opening, but it's terribly unfortunate the way the weather has turned out. It looks, Pat, as if we're going to have to maybe use Plan B. What do you think?
Yeah, we were expecting about 300 people to come here this evening, but the weather has just got so bad at present that we think that a lot of them will make their way to the Enterprise Centre.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Chairman of Donaghmore Historical Society of the current year, it's my privilege to welcome you all to this highly important occasion in the life of our society, and trust that this will be a memorable occasion for us all.
Last Supper, yeah. Last Supper.
It was just when it was unveiled that just, sense of, oh, that I actually did that, and it's just something that I really don't know how to. I feel, it's something that I'm very, very proud of.
It went quite well actually at the end of the day, although it started off so very poorly, but
Yeah,
it
went very well. The weather became very good. What did you think, Francie?
I thought it was a magnificent occasion because whenever you think of the history that's involved in this and the passing on of this history to the next generations, you have here a live carving, and I think it tells the whole story. And just as it was unveiled, you could see the story unveiling along with it. I thought it was magnificent, and no one can imagine what it was like 1,000 years ago when they were unveiling the first one, but you can see now what it's like for this generation, and I think it's a history in the making.
It's amazing the interest it's kind of caused in the village. Even though it's a wet night, there's a lot of people come out to see it, and it's just brilliant. I mean, it's testament to kind of all the work that Davy's put into it, and there's so much to see in it. Everybody is taking the time and coming up and wants to touch it and see it. It really highlights the state that the old cross is in now. I was just kind of saying there, when you look at the old one, it looks green and decrepit at the minute, which is terrible, for it to be such the focal point of the village for such a long time. So maybe this will kind of spur people on to do something. But it also shows, how much detail there was in the old one initially, and that it does tell a story. So, hopefully people will appreciate it a bit more.
I honestly think the reaction of the people there was something of amazement there, in the scene of detail. But really, that was what the old one would look like when it was first unveiled.
Get yourself a chair. Well, thanks very much. I think the new cross in the future will be of great significance, because the last 200 years have left little of any significance for us. And today we have so many methods of preserving things. In 1,000 years' time, hopefully, we will have the old cross in as good a state of preservation as it is today, and the new cross will continue as an interpreter of the old cross. We've been here a long time now, over the last couple of years.
Never speak to each other again.
Committee is dissolved.
Meeting dissolved.
perhaps O'Neill's Castle might be our next.
I'm going home now, and after all these months and working on it, I've been looking at it 2 or 3 times, and it's been like leaving a friend, because me and it had an awful lot of times together. It's like leaving a friend behind. It's a part of me, and I'm really, emotional about that. I hope that my cross will stand as long as the original, but I also hope it doesn't take anything off the original, because the original is the original. But then in 1,000 years' time, maybe if the original has deteriorated in some old garb of mine.